Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Reminisce, the show where we look at older games, if they still hold up, what we like, what we don't like, and, you know, just some general nostalgia if we've got any for it. My name is Killjoy, and I'm joined by two other lovely gentlemen with me here today. To my left, Mr. Mark Kitchen. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. I'm looking forward to this one. And to my other left, Mr. Fruity Sammer. How's it going?
Pretty good.
I mean, you're more opposite,
Super
but
ready.
you can totally be my left side as well.
I was just thinking that when you said that. I was like, wait a minute, what?
What on the left?
Kind of confused me.
That's what I like to do. Start off on a high note, you know, and it can't get any worse than this.
No,
Today, we are going to be looking at the 1986 video game Castlevania, developed and I believe published by Konami. Maybe just developed. It's basically a game that came out on the Family Computer Disk System, which I believe was the add-on to the Famicom, and then eventually ported over to the NES for the West. And it's basically a platform adventure game that involves you playing essentially a vampire killer going after to kill Dracula. And it's been ported to a various number of systems, and it's also been released on a bunch of systems. Primarily noticed for its antagonist being Dracula, protagonist being Simon Belmont, probably more recently famous because of Smash, but part of the lore.
I always said the Netflix show was probably the way you got a lot.
Well,
was
that's
he not
Trevor.
in that one?
That's Trevor.
Oh, it's Trevor, not Simon, isn't it? My bad.
So yeah, there are a lot of Belmonts.
As a franchise, definitely.
Yeah, as a franchise, people know who the Belmont clan are. The games have done fairly well. They've been pretty successful. The first few in the series were primarily platform games. And then when Symphony of the Night came out on PlayStation 1, was it PlayStation 2? I think it's PlayStation 1. That's when the whole Metroidvania game started to come about, and where they started to make it more like a Metroid game and whatnot.
This one's definitely way more linear.
Yes.
You can't really explore.
That's why I've never understood the whole phrase Metroidvania, because this is the only one I've ever played.
So the term Metroidvania comes from the Metroid exploration and usually the RPG elements of the later Castlevania games.
Right.
So with the original Castlevania games, they were straight up just platform adventure games essentially. But Symphony of the Night came out and it made it into a Metroid game where you have a map and you can go you don't have a linear path, you just go to different areas and then you pick up items that let you explore, just like Metroid basically. How you get that. And the reason it's Metroidvania is because they both
spooky.
Yeah, they just combined all those elements. One side.
We're not going to be talking about those games.
No, we're talking about the original
platforming.
At some point we shall probably.
Yeah, I mean they are very good.
Yeah.
The original Castlevania then, so let's just get to it. You guys haven't really ever played a Castlevania game like growing up, have you?
No. I didn't even know the name Simon Belmont until I knew you, basically.
Okay.
I wasn't even familiar with...
Sure.
I'd heard of Castlevania, but I didn't know
the protagonist.
Even the protagonist's name. I wasn't even sure what type, genre it was.
Yeah.
Probably because it changed from platform to RPG. That might factor into it. I thought I'd heard that it was more of an RPG, but then that's what it maybe became a bit more of later. I don't know. So I hadn't played anything until whenever it was, a month or so ago when we started playing this.
And same with you three, you haven't really played much Castlevania, if at all.
I mean, I must have played it at some point, but definitely never owned it. Never have massive nostalgia. I've seen a lot of them because of speed running and there's a lot of YouTube series. They're pretty well documented games.
Yes.
So I know quite a bit about them, but I think probably one of the later ones, on Game Boy or something, it's probably when I experienced stuff.
Or something like that.
Yeah, or the remakes on Advance and stuff. I've definitely experienced them, but not enough to have any strong memories about them.
Yeah. So for the longest time, I mean, I remember playing one of them growing up, and I actually thought it was the third one, but it wasn't. It's actually the second game that I played back in the day. I was probably about 7 or 8 or something. Was the first time I played Castlevania 2. And that game is very different to the first one. It's non-linear and it's RPG and all this sort of stuff. But I only ever remembered it for being really, really hard, and I couldn't get anywhere.
Seemed very confusing from the 10 minutes I saw of it.
Yeah, it's not straightforward at all, that game. So my nostalgia for the longest time was me thinking I played the third game, but actually it was the second game. and I didn't play the first one until much later on. But I had played the Castlevania series growing up. But like I said, I was very confused. It wasn't too much later, similar with you, where it was like I played some of the DS ones, the Game Boy Advance ones, and also started watching speedruns, because I feel like Castlevania is one of those game series that gets like pretty much every game in the series has a speedrun, and they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're quite publicised as well. One of those games like kind of like your Donkey Countries and stuff like
Mario
that.
And stuff like that.
There's a lot of speedruns.
Perfect, kind of like cheesing off of enemies and stuff, like kind of what the Metroid.
Yeah, similar sort of stuff where you can
save
just,
all those frames.
Yeah, doing the damage boosts and all that good stuff.
Yeah, all of that.
I've always been more of like completely tangentially, but I've always been way more like into like 2D platformer speedruns. Like I like Mirror's Edge, but like most of like the 3D ones, I'm not so into them. They're normally like a lot longer as well.
Yeah.
I really like speedruns that are like around like half an hour or less. Because like I ain't got time to watch like a 5-hour speed run of like Wind Waker or something. It's like it's a lot of time.
What I like about a lot of the speed runs of things like Castlevania and Metroid and stuff like that is the fact that these games are quite they're not like long, but you know like 4, 5, 6 hours, and then they beat it in like 20 minutes, and you're just like absolute flabbergasted. It's like what? Like what's going on? It's so impressive to watch, and like we watched the speedrun. I don't know if it's the world record now, but on YouTube it was said the world record for this game, and it's just like you're sat there watching, going, this person's just like knows everything about it. Like they know the exact number of hearts they need, the exact weapon where it's going to spawn, boosting off enemies to get up like stairs.
Absolute precision at every point.
Like stun locking all the bosses and just making it like.
So also like knowing when to like update your strategy based on like patterns and cycles of enemies and stuff. Like it's really, that's why I find it so impressive. To be like, oh, I've got the bad cycle for this, so therefore they have to like adjust how they're gonna like go against the enemy and bosses and that. Like I like it when that happens. Yeah. Especially when you watch it like live, like Games Done Quick or something. Someone's like, oh crap, I got like literally the worst cycle possible. Yeah, but normally at this point I just restart, but because he's like there with like an audience, he has to like play it. It's always fun to watch them be like thinking on their feet. Yeah. It's like oh, I normally just give up at this point, but I need to like still carry on. It's like
you gotta love it. That's the best thing about speedruns, isn't it? It's just being like watching them do it on the fly.
Yeah, that I like adapting to the circumstances.
So let's talk about what we like about this game. Mr. Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you first. How do you feel about what do you like about this game? How do you feel about it?
I think like the one of the things that stands out immediately is the different items you get.
Yeah,
it's quite cool. I like the cross and like the holy water and the knife.
Yeah. Stopwatch.
I just think it's quite cool, really. I know other games are doing that. Starting to happen in the mid to late 80s doing that, but it still seems like it probably influenced later games. That kind of
I kind of like sub-weapon, like
item, sub-weapon type thing. Yeah,
because your magic.
It gives you more variety, doesn't it? Because obviously this game you use you don't know this game you use a whip, which I already like because it's not something you see in a lot of video games. Mostly it's like swords, stuff like that. This is a whip, and you can upgrade it, and it's got ridiculous length. But I like the fact that in this game you have that whip. It only fires like in one direction, so the sub weapons allow it to mix up the combat and give you extra angles and things, don't they, to attack?
Yeah, so I quite enjoy having that option of just using different attacks, especially if you're trying to save up for a boss or something, and be like, oh, I'll keep hold of that item because I know that will come in handy later on.
Yeah.
Collecting your hearts so that you can use it a certain number of times, and it just adds an element of strategy, really. You just want to make sure you collect enough hearts so that you've got plenty of energy for the boss and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, makes your life a hell of a lot easier, especially when you start the bat. Even the bat on the first one, because it flies around a lot. If you've got the axe, you can just stand there and be like, see you later.
I really like it's just satisfying whipping everything. I just think that's just really satisfying, especially the number of candles there. I just constantly smacking items out of the candles.
Definitely, if you're OCD, don't play this game. There's so many candles in this.
It's like the normal whip is kind of like a bit unsatisfying, but then you get the upgrade and it's just longer and better.
Yeah.
And you get some enemies don't have projectiles, so they have to try and get near you, but you're just like, nope, and just like whip them from afar. that kind of stops happening as you get further onto the harder levels where the enemies just dive at you. But yeah, whipping is fun, basically. Level design's good.
For considering you're in a castle, apart from you're in the castle, aren't you? So you're kind of like going through it. I assume the entire setting's in the castle.
Yeah.
Because just in the first level, you sort of enter it, don't you? So
Yeah.
like,
There's that bit when you like fall down
into the
and
caverns,
you go to like you know, kind of all like the round parts and sewery. Kind
I
of
mean,
thing.
it's not as varied as like maybe like sort of Mario Bros games at that time, or like Mega Man and stuff, like the
different environments,
and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still decent. Gives like a good atmosphere considering it's an 8-bit game. So
I think it's trying to show off different parts of the castle. It's like the first level is you entering it, then the second level is you like sort of climbing it, then the third level is sort of outside on top, and then you fall back down into the caverns, and then it's like a dungeon, and then it's like sort of a clock tower-esque part when you fight Dracula at the end and stuff. So it kind of like shows different parts of the castle.
Yeah, it gives you the full picture.
Yeah.
Even though they can be quite annoying, I think that the variants, like the enemy variants, are quite good.
Yeah.
There's some quite simple ones, and then it's like about like pattern learning. Like we've been playing Mega Man recently. It reminds me of that, like learning patterns and stuff.
Yeah.
And you obviously get that in games like Shovel Knight and Mario games and stuff like that. So that's like gives it that kind of replay value. If you die, you'd be like, right, I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to do something different to get past it and all that kind of thing. It's very typical of like 8-bit platforming games.
Sure.
And I quite like that, even though I got frustrated with some of the enemies. Like
juice heads.
And I got stuck on that part. I probably could do it if I played that game again, but you know, for the sake of us, like, you know, tonight I was just like, Dave, take over.
You do. And he's like absolutely busted through
I was doing pretty
well. Doing really well.
Nailed it.
You're like, it's fucking easy.
Oh yeah.
I like the music as well. I've still got it in my head. Like,
there's something music. I think now that I've heard so many different versions of a lot of these tracks, like maybe it's just I think it's just we've spoken about this before, but with like a lot of the 8-bit and 16-bit era of tunes, they just kind of have to be catchy. Like if that's because they're such short loops, a lot of them they kind of have to be catchy, and then like later on the line you hear like these like renditions in like classical orchestras and stuff, and they've like blown it like this 8-bit track into this massive tune, and it's like just super impressive. The first track, Vampire Killer, which is the one that plays on the first level, it's just like I've heard so many versions of that, like metal versions, orchestrated versions, stuff, and I'm just like, that's like an absolute. That's like one of my got me in my top 10. That track is so good.
It's like
it is a good track.
Shovel Knight just got that music.
Yeah,
stuck in my head.
Strike the Earth, like the first level is so good.
Just got stuck in my head for ages after that. And other 8-bit games like Punch Out, that music gets stuck in my head a lot.
Mario Brothers, like
anything that's kind of repetitive but also catchy is just stays with you.
Chemical Planet.
That's 16-bit, but I'll give you that one. That's a good damn tune.
It's the best, best of all time.
So good catchy music. It's pretty good graphically. Well, it's an 8-bit game, but it looks good. Some good colours and
you can clearly see where everything is.
Yeah. Good enough textures, nice different colours, environments and stuff.
I think that's the thing is like you can tell on the first level you're kind of like in sort of the hall entrance way of a castle, and then you kind of go down a little bit, there's a bit of water, and you come back up, and then the cavern level before it goes outside again, you can clearly see it's meant to be like a cave or a cavern and stuff.
Yeah.
So at least it's fairly obvious for the most part, it's fairly obvious to see exactly what's what.
Well, this is like one of the oldest games we've reviewed to date. Very much, other than like Mario Brothers and maybe something else. But it's a fairly clean looking game. You can see what everything is.
Yeah,
it's 8-bit, but it's clear enough to know where you've got to go and all of that kind of thing. So it looks pretty good. It's a decent looking game.
Yeah,
that's most of what I think I've covered off quite a bit.
Awesome. Well, we'll chuck it over to Mr. Fruity. What do you like about this game?
Yeah, like a lot of shared views. Like I'm really into like the art style.
Yeah.
Like the use of the whip, used to like the magical abilities or items.
Yeah.
It's not really magical, but kind of magical.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I like the way he moves. I quite like doesn't feel too like clunky or like non-responsive.
He also stops. Like, as soon as you let go of the button, he stops, which is quite nice.
And it's like there's a slight delay with the whip and that. But I kind of like that. It kind of works with like the feel of like a whip.
Yeah, you actually get the animation of him like flicking it backwards before he like lashes out.
So you got a slight delay. Yeah, I really like the idea of having like kind of like a mid-range, like 2D platformer dude. There's not many of those. Most of them have like swords or
exactly,
like guns. There's not really many that are like just mid-range. And pretty much all those abilities as well. There's nothing that really goes like forward forever, is there?
You've got the cross is like a boomerang, and that's like
so it's all kind of like mid-range.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I really like definitely scratches my itch of like that like constantly trying to like get to the next part of the game.
Yeah,
that kind of like I find the cycle really fun. Like sometimes like the gaps between like respawning are like a bit too far.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when you get to like a bit further on, then you die and you have to go all the way back. But it doesn't feel like too far. Like,
it still gives you that determination to get back to where you were.
Yeah. And I feel like rewarded for like trying new things and like trying to work out like how to beat different enemies. Like, I really like that. Like you can learn strategies for each enemy, and like the level design, I really like how it introduces enemies, and a lot of the like scenarios are really well planned out.
Yeah.
Like even when you're fighting on like bridges and like with giant gaps and stuff, I really like trying to think about how to approach this and how to like set myself up for the next scene, like trying to like despawn and like spawn things as you're kind of like inching across the screen. Like once again, I need to find a better term for this, but it kind of scratches that Dark Souls itch for me, where it's just like I like that like try again, die, repeat, try again, die, repeat, try again. Oh, victory! Next stage, then die, repeat, die, repeat, die, repeat. Like I really like that kind of progression, like feeling like you've like achieved something. But yeah, other than that, it's good music, good visuals. Didn't realise this game was as old as it was.
No, it is old. It's very old, isn't it?
Very old.
It's like, damn.
Yeah.
I kind of could tell that it was old from looking at it, but like I didn't really know until we started playing. I didn't know where the series started.
Comparing it to like a lot of old like NES games, that's why I thought the controls were so good.
Yeah.
The only thing that's annoying is that you have to do like the up B to use your like side ones.
Yeah.
That's just kind of a limitation of the time.
Yeah.
There's only so many buttons you got.
Unless you hit select.
Yeah. Ooh, something else I'm going to say. Like I really like how all the bosses feel quite unique. Like they're all quite different. Like the mummies and Dracula and the bats and they've all got quite different feels. That they do different like animations and like attacks and stuff.
So like death as well, it like flies around and stuff.
It's quite a nice amount of variation.
It's an interesting series because obviously it pulls from a lot of like what's the word for it, like stories, isn't it? Because it's like Dracula and Castle. It's based on like folklore. Sorry, that's the right word. Yeah. Like I like the fact that if you've like if you know the story of Dracula and
really
stuff.
Fancy the shared consciousness.
Yes. Like that whole thing. Like I like the take on it. That it's like it's not just the normal story of Dracula. It's like no, this is about a clan of people who like their like entire like destiny is about fighting Dracula.
Yeah. Also kind of like how like they try to do like the kind of like spooky atmosphere and stuff. It kind of works. Like obviously it's not trying to be like horror. A scary game, like, but like I like the kind of like the sense of like foreboding. It's very kind of like it's not like super like Disney like Halloween special.
Yeah.
But like it's got quite a nice atmosphere to it. It's a sense of like foreboding, which I think is quite well done considering the amount of art assets they had to use.
Yeah, and we got only limited sprites. I think it's really interesting because you have that kind of look and these monsters backed up by what I would consider quite groovy music.
Yeah.
So you're like, like the second level, like dum 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 dum, and you're just like running through this corridor with this tune playing, and you're like, it's really nice to see like visuals of like this gothic castle. But it's like, it's like proper. Like, I'm really into this.
It's because they couldn't really put any string arrangements in the game.
Yeah.
Like,
can't really make it too horrifying, can you? With like limitations.
They can't put too much. There's just the limitations.
But like, it works really well.
Hardware.
Like, I love the look and the visuals versus like what the music's actually doing.
But that kind of works with like all those like Dracula.
It was kind of like epic, and it's trying to get that epic feel to it.
Works like with like Monster Squad and like the Hammer films and like even like the 30s like Universal and that like it does a nice way of like it kind of like honors the creatures and stuff, but it's got that kind of like campy kind of like over the top feel as well.
Yeah.
Like it's very much like kind of like a Hammer House of Horrors. What I kind of get the vibe of like their kind of like level of like scary, campy, modernized. But yeah, I think that's everything for me.
Yeah. Oh, I got a few things I can talk about. I also was just thinking about this then. One of the games I can think about that on the NES that had actually legitimately good box art that suited what the game was about as well. Unlike Mega Man. Mega Man has terrible box art. But this, like the picture of Simon like whipping, and there's like the castle, and then like a picture of Dracula.
I reckon that's because I recently watched like a YouTube video about how like they were trying to hide the Animus away from the West because West people don't like Animus.
Oh, what with like the idea of this box art being like kind of.
Like, do you reckon it's just because it's kind of based on like a Western folklore?
Yeah, I would say
so. You reckon that's why it works so well because like the American artist who just looked at like Castlevania was like saw the word Dracula and was like. Castle, vampire, do the whip, done. But the way it works is just because it was kind of like the Western artist was like, I don't need to Westify this, I can just do it.
Yeah. It's just something that just looks, it's a good, for me, I was saying about earlier that I kind of want a poster of it. I just like the idea, it's like him whipping and then it's like, kind of everything, it says everything you need to know about the game with that box art, straight up. In terms of things I like, something we haven't touched on is that, like, a lot is the controls of this game. When we went back and played it, I was expecting this game to handle like ass. Yeah. But actually, it plays really well. Like you move like what?
Said that. I was talking about the controls.
I know that, but like I kind of want to go into more detail. I want to go into more detail of it, just like the.
No one's mentioned the controls so far. Not a peep.
Not a peep. Not a sausage. But I was thinking about just like how. Just how easy it is to play it in terms of I was expecting them to feel a lot more clunky even when you jump. So in this game when you jump, you've committed to that jump, you have no air control. So if you jump forward, you jump forward. But even then, you don't hang in the air that long and everything just feels super responsive. And that I think surprised me the most about this was like when we were doing it, I was like once I got the rhythm down of like whipping and then jump whipping to get the candles in the hanging in the ceiling and stuff or in the sky, back of the wall, I was like, I found that rhythm and I suddenly was like, oh no, this clicked really well with me. And obviously I like platform games, like my favourite types of games. So for me, I was like, no, actually this plays really well. Like that kind of shocked me how well, like in terms of just the movement options and not to do the sub-weapons or the actual whipping per se, but like actually moving back and forwards and jumping. Just that surprised me massively. I wasn't expecting it to feel that coherent in my hands.
I know it's quite simple, but I just like when you jump and then you whip as you're falling back down, so you get a candle that's kind of halfway between your standing whip and your jumping whip, and just things like that. Especially if you're coming down from one platform, a high platform down to a lower one, kind of like whip an enemy on your way down or something. It's like, I know it sounds really simple, but it's like it's just satisfying to kind of. It just feels good, doesn't it, to play?
That's what I think shocked me, because obviously the game that I usually compare things to, like platformers, is Mario, and like that game to me, even though it's not my favourite Mario game, I still think it handles really well. Obviously, you have like Castlevania, Mega Man, and like DuckTales, and other games that also play really, really well, and I wasn't sure about Castlevania until I properly played it again recently, and I was like, no, actually this does play a lot better than I expected it to. I was expecting the controls to feel really iffy and kind of like frustrating, but they weren't at all, which was great. Obviously you guys have mentioned my other things really. Music, fantastic. Vampire Killer is definitely, like I said, one of my favourite tracks. Actually pretty much all the music in the entire game is really good. for the bleeps and the bloops that it is. And obviously, we've spoke about the weapon and the sub-weapons and things, and just like how they just, the whip feels nice, the animation of the whip is good. When you upgrade it, it becomes longer and then has like a big ball and chain, like sort of Morning Star kind of look to it, which is really cool. That's what it's meant to be anyway.
But yeah, like the way it updates is nice as well, so you can tell how strong you are with just the animation.
You got this crappy little like lever whip, and then it's that one, and then it's something that's like much longer. And then the sub weapons, like I quite like the axe. I think is my favourite one because it sort of chucks it in like an arc, but it makes it really easy to like take stuff out. But you got the stopwatch, which stops time for about 2 to 3 seconds, which is super useful on like some of the sections where you've got like enemies that are firing projectiles. You can stop them and just wail on them. The knife we don't really use that much, but it basically fires out a projectile in front of you. That's not too bad. The cross is really powerful because it's like a boomerang. You like chuck it forward and it goes back and forth. And then holy water, which is kind of like a multi-hit sort of attack in front of you, which sort of just blocks enemies as well. So it's kind of nice that you have like a variety of stuff. Sometimes it's a bit annoying when you have an item that you like and you whip a candle and then suddenly you're like, oh, I didn't want the stopwatch, I wanted to keep the holy water or whatever. But I think that's part of learning, like when you're playing through the game, like where they're going to drop and if you want those weapons and things.
When they just drop straight into the hole.
Yeah, you're like, no, like, I wanted that.
Not quite on the platform.
Something I was gonna. You've obviously sort of mentioned this with the kind of like the Souls, like kind of like rinse and repeat.
You can find a better terms. I'm sick of saying it's like Dark Souls.
We can go with like trial and error style of gameplay if you like.
Yeah, like
it's like a game that came out 25 years later.
Yeah, it's like rewarding progression cycle. But
Yeah,
it's not as fluent as just saying.
Dark's like Souls like, sorry.
Yeah, Souls.
What I was thinking about difficulty because I went into this game originally thinking, oh my god, this game's gonna be like ultra hard, ultra cheap, like real cheesy. And like coming away from it, and apart from like the cavern level, which is where I kind of got to, and I obviously had issues with it, but that was more down to me just not memorizing the pattern. Like the game itself, like playing it now, isn't that hard. Like I know if I give this to someone who's never played a Castlevania game, like this game is actually brutal if you've never played something like this. But the first level isn't that difficult because none of the enemies spawn next to you. They're always one side or the other side of the screen. The bats on that level are always like one at a time, and then the mermen that come out of the water always spawn a certain distance away from you, whether that's your left or your right, so you've always got room to maneuver when enemies appear. And then the next level, when it introduces the Medusa heads on that long stretch, and you have like the candles along, and you have these Medusa heads that sort of weave up and down like a sound wave. And you found that quite difficult, didn't you, Mark, to start with, because you were just trying to get used to the pattern of this.
And when you get used to it, it's alright. Like, it just takes a bit of repetition, really.
Yeah.
That's why I got further this time, because I was like, oh, now I get that. And then I got on to the next bit, and if I'd tried a bit harder, I could have got past that. But it's just,
because you can learn
try
with
things multiple times, and you get used to the pattern. It's just pattern learning, isn't it?
Yeah. Really? The thing with the Medusa heads that's interesting is because they have if you jump when they're about to spawn, they'll spawn higher up, so you can run underneath them, or you can get them to spawn lower down and jump over them and stuff like that. So you just kind of have to find that rhythm of it. But like you can literally walk with them, or you can get one to spawn the other side of you and walk with it. Yeah. So like they're not in front of you anymore; they're just coming from behind you. And once you get to a certain point on that level, they stop spawning altogether.
And there were some points where I was still getting hit by them, but it was mainly just my own laziness. I was like, right, I want to get back to the place where I was, so I'm just going to speed through.
Start rushing it,
yeah, just rush it and then get hit and just be like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll tank some damage because I'm probably going to still get to where I was or whatever. But yeah,
I find it really interesting, like knowing that this series is generally like considered tough. These games are not easy, and I know Castlevania 2 and 3 are not. They are harder, but like I've never expected to get as far as I did personally in this game. Now, I know that's probably part of the fact that like I've watched a load of it recently. I've also, I have some skill when it comes to platformers, but like I just didn't think I was going to pick it up as quick as I did. And now I've played more of it. I'm like, actually, apart from maybe like some of the enemy placement in later levels, this game isn't cheap, because a lot of old like arcade games and NES games, you do play them and they do feel quite cheap because it's stuff that's out of your control. But this, I didn't get that with it. I didn't get frustrated. I actually, because I got so like into the controls of it, I'm like, oh, controls feel really good. When I was dying and like when I was getting hit, I was like, no, that's my fault. That is my fault. And it's really surprising is probably the best way for me to describe it. Like I really like the fact that it's not a cheap game to play. It doesn't feel like if I get frustrated with it, it's because I'm like come on, I've done this 20 times before. Why do I keep dying?
This. Yeah,
yeah.
It's my fault, not the game's fault.
yeah, and it's. I mean, there are some like weird something like. There's sometimes when you get hit, like if you jump, sometimes you just get hit and you go straight down and whatnot. But generally speaking,
yeah, we'll get onto that.
Yeah, but you generally speaking, when you kind of know like how your character's going to react. So there's nothing that's going to surprise you. So as long as you know, like when you see an enemy come on screen, you're like, oh, okay, I know how he's going to attack. You can best figure out like the way to deal with it. So
yeah,
that's all the things I wanted to talk about in terms of likes. So should we get on to dislikes then?
Yep.
Okay, actually, let's start with fruity. We'll go the other way around then.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, mix it up
Madness.
a bit.
Oh my god.
The
room is
Next,
spinning.
Levi will be starting. It'll be weird.
I know.
To me, it's not that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I pretty like this game. Like, I was surprised how someone I didn't think I've ever played this game before, but obviously I have a lot of experience with like similar games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, it wasn't really much. Like, obviously, like getting knocked back is always annoying.
Yeah.
Like, falling down that hole and stuff. But then also it's a part of like the game's design. So I can't really begrudge it. Because like if it wasn't for that, then it'd be like super easy.
Yeah.
And see, there's not like a huge amount of invincibility
Flames.
Flames.
Frames.
Said that. Invincibility frames. So it's not too bad. It's not too hard. Yeah, I don't think there's much I didn't like really. I mean, obviously, like the buttons kind of annoying. Like,
yeah.
Doing the up.
Oh,
like,
the up B.
Maybe if it was mapped to like select or something, it might be even easier than just doing that. But
yeah.
Obviously, a lot of that's just limitation of the time. But yeah, there's nothing really I can think of that isn't just like problems of like the era it was designed for, which isn't really fair to expect it to have like the design of like a modern game.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't think of anything really.
Alright, well then we'll chuck it over to Mr. Mark. If you think of anything, come back with us.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Mark then.
That's the only thing I can think of are like technical limitations. Like I got a bit frustrated when some of the enemies hit you and you'll move like that off a platform.
You do go flying.
There's never a point where they hit you and you just flash like without moving like you do in a lot of other games, and I'm just like, okay, so I've got to get used to they're gonna hit me and I'm gonna fall off that ledge that I've just jumped over because there's nowhere else for me to go.
Yeah,
kind of thing. If you could control yourself in the air, it'd be so much easier. If you could like change your vector by.
So if you go from one ledge to another like small one, and then there's an enemy coming to that ledge, it's like you have to make sure you jump to that one when the enemy isn't approaching it, because there's no way if it hits you, you're gonna fall off one way or the other, like one side of that platform. But that I can't really call that a gripe. I just found it frustrating because I'm like, oh yeah, this is how games work.
Something whoosh, see ya.
Kind of similar to like the amount of times I try and jump onto a platform, and then I get like caught into like the sprite, so you can't like get up. You're like, well, I need to jump up into this platform to like progress.
Yeah.
And because of the sprite placement, it's not like the collision's been detected like wrong. There's like, the amount of times I'm struggling just trying to like jump up platforms.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on.
You have to kind of like move back away and then sort of move.
It's like oh, it's too close to it to try and actually get on top of it.
I got hit by these falling spikes, but I didn't feel like I was underneath them.
Oh yeah, that's like a slightly wonky hitbox, wasn't there? It's like a crusher, wasn't it? It didn't look like you got hit by it, but
so it was a bit of a wonky hitbox. But again, like the thing I mentioned about the enemies hitting you, like it's just how games were. It's just either a technical limitation or it's just how things were. Then like I don't feel like either of those are really valid sort of criticisms of the game. So in terms of actual valid criticisms of the game, I can't actually think of anything. No? I don't think it doesn't mean that I think this is the perfect game.
Sure.
It just means that there isn't anything bad to say about it. Really, it's not.
I mean, I can sort of expand on some of these things. Like I've written down here, I have put difficult enemy patterns because I do think that some of the enemies, like the flying enemies especially, like the crows are a weird one. They sort of fly at you, then they nosedive at you, then they go down, then they come up. Like learning some of them can take a bit of time, and especially enemies that sort of move erratically, it does take quite a long time to figure out.
There's always a way to avoid all of them. you never. There's always a way to avoid it, all of them. There's no.
There's
no actual like proper bullshit parts where you're like, okay, there's no way.
No, I think it's just like if you take level 3, when you have the start of the level with what they're called flea men, the little dudes that bounce around. They're not too difficult, but they can be annoying because sometimes they'll just keep jumping over you, and it's like go away. But no, when you get up to the next bit, you have the crows, and like they literally just give you a bunch of crows to deal with, like the next 4 or 5 enemies. But they make it down the last couple on like some really like a couple of platforms and a hole, and it's just a bit fiddly. But once you obviously get them down and you realise, like, the thing is with this game, it's all about patience. Well, the only downside to that is this game has a time limit, and I don't know why it has a time limit. I mean, I know it's of its age, because pretty much all NES games seem to have time limits, and like platformers. But this game doesn't need one. It's just really weird.
Yeah. I don't think we ran out of time at any point though, did we?
Not tonight. You did the first time.
Oh yeah, because I was just waiting around for ages for the enemies to go past.
But it is weird because they're almost kind of counterintuitive, because you learn that most of the enemies, if you take your time with them, you can easily beat them. You know, like you once you figure out the pattern of like a crow, you just wait for it to swoop down a certain thing, whip. Right, okay, next thing. And you try and deal with one thing at a time, because for the most part enemies don't respawn on screen unless it's like a flying enemy like Medusa heads. But then you realise you kind of have to get quicker at knowing like when to sometimes jump before the enemy comes on screen, and like whip, and like learn all the placements as well, because that time is constantly ticking down. I think when you get to a door, it adds so much more time on, which is basically like your checkpoints. But it is odd that I was thinking about this the other day. It's just odd that it has a time. I know why it does, because it's a NES game, and pretty much again they all did at the time. But it's just weird. It doesn't need one at all. Like, it's something that I was just like, if there's a way to disable it, I think it would just make the game so much better. Like, but we never really ran out of time, so it's not the end of the world.
Kind of. Like, I kind of like the time limit because it makes you like,
progress,
or it makes you like, like move forward. Like, it stops you from like slowing down the pace. Like, it's a good way of like
stops you from grinding on enemies and getting items, I suppose.
Yeah, and also like trying to make you like perceive your level.
Yeah.
In like a way where the designer's expecting you to like
being pushed
meet
constantly.
These points. Yeah. And it kind of like stops you from like dithering and like wondering about like what to do next. So kind of like, I mean, it's still pretty arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's definitely like when we first started playing it and we were like learning how to play the game, it definitely made us actually like go and do stuff rather than just like playing too patient and cautiously.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see why it's there. It's just, it's one of those things. It's just kind of weird. But I mean, again, I suppose you could have it in the way that like, oh, you've got to stop Dracula within a time limit, or they're all going to die. You know, there's probably a reason for it. But
Majora's Mask, though.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to talk about was just the knockback as well. Like, not that the knockback is a particularly like this is a terrible mechanic. It's just
irritating.
Well, it's just
like,
again,
annoying.
It's one of those things where if you are not used to playing games like this, it can seem like wow, like especially that cavern level, because you have to learn like when the bats are coming and stuff, and you're on these platforms. You want knockback and you're dead and stuff, and it's like I could totally understand why someone would see that if they're not used to this game being cheap and being frustrating. Like, I don't particularly mind it because I know that Castlevania is known for like you get hit, you get knocked back. But like if you're used to playing other platform games, like you were saying, Mark, you normally take a little bit of knockback, just a smidge. You've got a few invincibility frames, and off you go. On this, it's like no, you've gone half a screen backwards. You know, like you go flying. And I can understand that being a big frustration for people, and I could definitely see people getting turned off of the game, or a lot of the games from that.
At least the enemies don't seem to come back if you get knocked back. And
it's only certain types of enemies that actually respawn, I think. Like the flying ones. I think on the first level we got the zombies that run back and forth.
Like Mega Man, like you can guarantee they're going to respawn. And you're like, I just got knocked back about 50 times already.
Yeah. But like,
it's
in terms of like with these things, like we're saying, in terms of these dislikes. I mean, I do find these things annoying, but not enough for me to not like.
Yeah,
they're just part of the game. Like
it's just 80s platforming.
Yeah, like time limit doesn't bother me because I played Mario games and like other games with them, so it's like whatever. The learning the patterns isn't that difficult. It's only really the flying enemies that are a bit of a pain.
They definitely have the most like advanced like AI.
Yeah, because everything else just walks towards you except for skeletons that jump.
And like the flea men.
Yeah, they sort of bounce and stuff. Yeah. But like, there's nothing in playing this game that's like inherently like, oh my god, that ruined my fun. Like, apart from like the odd, like sometimes you can get clipped and like your drop speed's kind of weird in this. Like you will go whoosh sometimes and fall down. One minor thing that just came up, but again, this is just I think something that I encountered that was a problem, probably not with the game, but just with me. On the cavern level, there's a bit that there's like a platform going back and forth, and there's like a bunch of skulls. It looks like you can jump on it because the first times I did this level, I kept jumping there, and I was like, no.
It is weirdly detailed and bright.
Yeah.
So you assume it's in the foreground.
Weird how we didn't know that you could go on those platforms on the top.
Yeah, because
you're just like, oh my god, the enemies are all floating. It's like, no, they're not. They're walking.
You can actually get up there, but I think you have to damage boost to get up there. But I think it is like legitimate platforms, which is really cool. But other than that, that's pretty much like in terms of my dislikes, air quoting around that, like of it. So, well, we've come to the final part then. What do we think this game still holds up? So we'll start with you, Mr. Mark. Do you think this game still holds up?
I think it surprisingly quite does.
Yeah.
Surprisingly quite does.
Surprisingly
quite
does.
Maybe.
As in, like, I'm leaning more towards yes than no.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I really like that way of explaining. It's a really good sentence.
Terribly worded. Yeah. I mean, surprisingly, it is still very playable. I think I know I didn't get very far into it, probably less than about a third of the way through or something, but it is a short game, so if you did get quite far into it, it's like one of those games you can pick up and complete in like
an
hour or something, if you include dying a number of times. I think because the first level is relatively easy, that kind of gets you into it, and then even though it kind of ramps up by the second or third level, it kind of has that replay value, that kind of Dark Souls dying and being like, right,
up in the thesaurus and see what else there is.
Good shout.
We should make this a running theme for like our
every
podcast now.
This is such a
Does it have the Dark Souls factor?
I hope not.
It's just such a good term. Like, it's just such a good way. It's like so succinct to call it that, but it is kind of annoying.
Yeah,
I can keep harping on about one thing.
But yeah, this game has like all the items. I guess you could call them power-ups or items, or that makes it interesting enough. And like, some of the platforming, like the jumping, isn't as fluid as like later platforming games where you might be able to like
more air control or whatever,
jump and all that kind of stuff. But I still think it's a fun game. I still think I would play it, have fun with it. I can see us playing it, have another crack at it at some point and picking it up here and there.
Yeah.
I think it holds up surprisingly well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the best platform I've ever played, but I mean it's aged better than
some other games
of its time.
It's also aged better than some of the games we've done in my opinion, than some of the games we've talked about on this show already.
You think about other games that are coming out at the time that, there's a lot of good games from that time, but then you think about the original Metroid. Like, that game is just frustrating. Like, it's just like I play it for like 10 minutes and then I'm just like, I don't know where I am. I don't have any desire to carry on with this game.
That's every time I play Metroid. Like, nah.
But I only feel that way about the original Metroid, by the way. I love the series.
I just need a guide.
Yeah.
Every time I play one.
So this game has that kind of replayability, and I think it's good.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah. Mr. Fruit Sama, what do you think?
I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I think we were all kind of like pleasantly surprised by this.
Yeah.
Like, I was going into this, I was pretty much expecting it to be like fairly naff,
clunky, and
clunky.
Yeah, clunky.
And like you said, like compared to some of the things we've reviewed in this show as well, like it's definitely had the most like fun time. Like, I never felt like I was really hampered by like the age of it.
Sure.
Or like confused as to what was going on. So I definitely recommend for people to play this. Like, if it stands up to like my nostalgia, I can't really say because I don't really have any like can't really reminisce about this game. But I definitely say it's worth playing. I'm kind of curious to go back, to be honest. I kind of want to finish this game.
Play Symphony of the Night, Dave. I know you'll like that game.
That's the one I've definitely played a bit of.
Yeah.
I remember borrowing out of like a friend or someone, but I think everyone played Symphony of the Night.
Except me, I've not played it, but I know of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised, and this might be one of the first games where I actually go back and play it. So I do kind of want to actually finish this game.
Yeah.
You were nailing it, to be fair.
You were doing really well. Doing really well.
Like, this is definitely like my kind of game.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the first on this series where I actually want to go and play it straight like afterwards and actually kind of complete it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you guys as well, to be honest. Like, I think the game is a lot of fun. And, I mean, Castlevania is kind of part of that, like, heritage of gaming from, like, the NES era. Like, you have, like, Mario, you have Mega Man, you have, like, Castlevania. Like, I know that Konami don't really make...
So it's like the proud heritage of being, like, left and forgotten now.
Yeah. It's just such a shame because, like, even though I've played quite a variety of games, and, like, I could probably go back and play the other ones again now, and I'm not particularly great at the other Castlevania games, but... It's just, there's a lot of stuff we got the whole term Metroidvania for a reason. I know that was to do with the later games, but like Castlevania did really well, sold really well, people got really into it. They've introduced some really cool characters, and like it's just a fun game. Like it's not complicated. It is fairly straightforward. It's a linear game, and like you were saying, like something like Metroid. I think the thing is, Castlevania works, and like a lot of linear games worked on the NES because of the technology at the time. They could do really good, like, straightforward platformers.
So the reason why platformers was so ubiquitous on that.
And it's the same, like, you can put arcade games on there because again, like, even if they were just ports, they would just work really well. Something with Metroid is super, it's super ambitious, and I respect the fact that they tried it. But it wasn't until much later when they had better technology, more buttons. They could do like.
Got a choice between like a cutscene and like a boss battle.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we've only got so much memory.
Yeah.
You could have this paragraph of dialogue on the screen, or we could, add in like an extra enemy into this game.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, like I'm very surprised with it. I'm really glad that we've done it. It's a really good game, and like I said, versus some of the other stuff we did, Streets of Rage, that game doesn't hold up very well compared.
Wow,
and this is,
according to you.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think.
I still say Streets of Rage.
Shinobi.
Well, Shinobi, I think plays better.
Don't hurt me.
I mean, even
there's
like
a lot of similarities in the games.
Yeah, I mean, even Sonic 1, a game that I generally enjoy, still like this. I think that doesn't age as well as this does. I think this ages better than that. But just in terms of
That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, but just in terms of a good, solid platformer with a good theme, because I think that's what makes this game so enjoyable. Is a good theme, an interesting weapon choice, because you don't see it often with a whip. Overall, I'm just really surprised, and I'm really happy that this is a game that I properly played now after playing some of the others, and being like, no, this is just good fun, and I'm happy about that. So,
yeah,
awesome.
Perfect.
Cool. Wow, this has been a very positive, glowing.
Yeah. This is the most positive we've done in ages.
Yeah,
probably since
Tony Hawk's 2.
Yeah,
probably.
All glowing all round.
That's true.
Love it. Alright, that's probably going to be it from us today then, guys. We got some other stuff coming for you, hopefully in the future, fairly soon. I'm looking forward to doing some of that stuff too. But for now,
maybe something smashing.
Oh god. Could that be any more obvious?
Breaking it in there.
Yeah, breaking it in gently. But obviously, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more content, hit subscribe. And then if you want to get involved in the discussion, the comment button. There is no button. No, the comment section.
The one comment button.
The comment section is down there below for you to write whatever you fancy feeling. Anything in there. Words not working today. But it's going to be goodbye from me, and it's going to be goodbye from these two.
Ta-da!
Goodbye.